Here is what most people get wrong. We have been told for decades that creaking knees are simply a normal part of getting older. That stiffness in the morning is something you quietly live with. That the only thing standing between you and a wheelchair is luck. I am here to tell you, calmly and on the record, that this is wrong. Stiffening joints are not a personality trait of age. They are a signal. And in my clinic, after 15 years of treating thousands of patients over 65, I can tell you exactly when that signal turns into trouble. I want you to remember one number tonight: 15 minutes. If your morning stiffness lasts longer than 15 minutes, you are already on a path. Stay with me until the end, because number 3 on my list is the one nobody talks about, and it surprises almost every patient I see. So what should you do instead of waiting, hoping, and quietly hurting? Stay with me. Let me reframe this in plain language. This is not about a sore thumb after gardening. This is not about clicking your knuckles before bed. This is about whether you will still carry your own groceries at 78. Whether you will still kneel down to play with your grandchild. Whether you will still button your own coat when the wind cuts through in February. Joint stiffness is a leading indicator of something larger. Researchers have followed older adults for years, and the data is sobering. In one large analysis, every 5-kilogram drop in grip strength came with a 16% higher risk of death from any cause. That is not a small number. That is the kind of number a doctor writes down. Before you think this is about an ache or a crack, hear me. It is about independence. It is about dignity. My name is Dr. David Reynolds. I am a rheumatologist. I have been in practice for 17 years. I have treated more than 9,000 patients, most of them over 60. I have published peer-reviewed research in osteoarthritis and inflammatory joint disease, and I sit on the editorial review board of 2 joint care journals. I trained in internal medicine at a university hospital, then completed my fellowship in rheumatology. I have seen every joint in the human body misbehave, and I have seen most of them recover. I want to be clear about one thing. I am not here to sell you a supplement. I am not here to scare you into a course. I am not sponsored by any supplement company, and I will not name a brand in this video. I am here because your appointment with your doctor is 15 minutes long, and there is almost never enough time to cover what I am about to cover. That is the frustration part. My first reaction when I see what patients have been told is not fear, it is frustration, because these signs are detectable, explainable, and, in most cases, addressable. Here is what I want you to know before we begin. Items 1 through 4 are early warning signs. The surprise I promised is number 3, because it shows up years before pain, but most patients completely ignore it. It involves your feet. Specifically, what happens the very first second you stand up out of a chair. I will explain what it means inside your joints, why it predicts trouble years down the road, and what to do about it in the next 48 hours. Before we get into the science, I want to ask you for something quick. Drop your age in the comments, just the number, 67, 72, 81. It does not matter. I read every single comment, and those numbers tell me who I am talking to next time. Subscribe while you are here, not because I need the count, but because if this reaches you, it can reach your sister in Cincinnati, or your neighbor next door, or the man at the church group who quietly winces every time he bends down. We will build this community one honest video at a time. 3 tiny pieces of biology before the list. You will hear me come back to these. 1. Cartilage. Think of it like the rubber tip on the end of a pencil, except it caps every bone in your joint. Smooth, slippery, slightly squishy. Its job is to let 2 bones glide without friction. When it thins or roughens, you get grinding and stiffness. 2. Joint oil, what we call synovial fluid. Think of it like the oil in a car engine. Your joints are filled with a clear liquid that nourishes the cartilage. When you rest for hours, that liquid thickens, like cold honey. Movement warms it, and the gears spin again. 3. Slow fire, what we call chronic inflammation. A little of it is part of healing, but when it smolders day after day, it roughens the rubber caps and thickens the oil. Keep those three pictures: cartilage, joint oil, slow fire. Now the four signs. 4. Your knees crack, pop, or grind every time you bend them. Every day in my office, I see this. A patient sits down, bends their knee with a hand on the joint, and there is a sound. Some describe it like popping bubble wrap. Others say it sounds like sand inside a seashell. That sound has a name. We call it crepitus, which simply means creaking or grinding. Here is what it does inside you. When the cartilage cap on the end of your thigh bone roughens, the two surfaces no longer glide smoothly. They catch. Bubbles in the joint fluid pop. Fibrous bands slide over one another. The sound is the physical evidence of friction where friction should not exist. A landmark study followed 3,495 older adults, led by a Veterans Affairs Medical Center research team. They found that people who reported frequent crackling and grinding in their knees were roughly 3 times more likely to develop symptomatic osteoarthritis of the knee within several years, compared to people with quiet knees. So what should you do instead of pretending the sound is normal? First, do not stop bending. That is the mistake I see most. Patients stop using the stairs. They stop kneeling in the garden. The less you move the joint, the weaker the muscles become, the more cartilage thins, and the louder the sound gets. Second, begin a 10-minute daily routine of gentle loading. Sit in a chair. Slowly straighten one knee until it is parallel with the floor. Hold for 5 seconds. Lower. Repeat 10 times per leg. Slow, controlled movement feeds the oil into the cartilage. Third, if the sound comes with swelling or pain that night, that is different. Make an appointment. Let me tell you about someone I will call Margaret. Margaret was 68 from Tucson. She came in because her right knee had been clicking for over a year, and her daughter had finally insisted. She told me, "It doesn't hurt, doctor. It just sounds like a bowl of Rice Krispies." On examination, the cartilage cap on the inside of her knee was already noticeably thinned. We started her on the chair routine, added a short walk after dinner, and saw her in 3 months. At the follow-up, the sound was still there but quieter, and her knee bent about 15 degrees further than at the first visit. Margaret's eyes watered a little when she realized she could again tie her own shoes without bracing against the wall. Synergy tip. Pair item 4 with item 1, the slow morning stretch I will describe in a moment. Cold, thick oil plus roughened cartilage equals a noisy morning. Warm oil plus strong cartilage equals quiet. 3. The very first step out of a chair is the worst step of your day. Here is the surprise I promised. Pay close attention. When you have been sitting for an hour, at a long dinner, at a movie, at your desk, the very first step you take is painful, sharp. Sometimes you gasp before you can stop yourself. Then, after 3 or 4 steps, it eases. You can walk. You could even jog if you wanted to. But that very first step, every single time, hurts. This is the most ignored early sign of joint stiffening after 65, and it is the one most patients dismiss as nothing. Here is what it does inside you. When you sit, the joint oil thickens. The cartilage, which has no blood supply of its own, depends on movement to soak up fresh nutrients, the way a dry sponge soaks up water. Sitting for an hour is long enough for the sponge to dry. The first step compresses the sponge all at once, like stepping on a stiff, dry one. After a few steps, the sponge has softened, and the next steps hurt less. Clinical research has shown that older adults in their mid-60s and beyond who report this first-step pain are far more likely to show structural joint changes on imaging within 3 years, even when resting X-rays still look fine. So what should you do instead of ignoring it? First, change the rule. Stand up every 30 minutes. Set a timer if you have to. The point is to keep the sponge damp. Even standing and sitting back down feeds the cartilage. Second, before you rise from a long sit, do 5 slow ankle pumps. Point your toes away from you, then pull them back, 5 times each foot. Think of it like priming a pump. You are getting the oil moving before the joint does real work. Third, when you are about to take that first step, take it slowly. Do not spring up. Place your feet flat, weight centered, and let the first step be a small one. The shock of a fast, hard first step is what people remember. The smooth, slow first step is what their joints prefer. Let me tell you about someone I will call Henry. Henry was 71, retired from a printing plant in Akron. He came in because his wife had noticed he was bracing his hands on the armrests of his recliner before standing and groaning. He told me, "I'm just old, Doc." On examination, his knees were stiff, but not yet arthritic. We added the stand-up every 30 minutes rule, the ankle pumps, and a single set of slow sit-to-stand movements before every meal. 6 weeks later, his wife called the office to say he had stopped bracing on the armrests. He was again standing up on his own, without a sound. Here is the part that should concern you most. First step pain is not a symptom of damage. It is a symptom of a joint becoming fragile. If you address it now, while the sponge can still soak, you can slow a decade of decline. If you ignore it for another 2 years, the cartilage will not bounce back the same way. 2. Your grip is slipping and jars are winning. Here is a question I ask every new patient over 65. Open this jar for me. Watch what happens. If a patient grips, twists again, then hands the jar back to me, I already know something. Grip strength is one of the most honest measurements in medicine. It tells me how strong the small muscles of the hand are, how strong the tendons through the wrist are, and surprisingly, how strong the major muscle groups throughout the body are. The hand is a window to the whole frame. Here is what it does inside you. The small muscles of the hand and the tendons that control them lose volume slowly after 60, the way a thick rope slowly frays. When you cannot open a jar, it is not just a hand issue. The same process is happening in your shoulders, hips, and knees. The hand is merely the first place you notice it. A comprehensive review of the medical literature, drawing on dozens of studies and thousands of patients, found that grip strength is one of the single strongest predictors of how well an older adult will function and how long they will live. The numbers are dramatic. A 5-kilogram drop in grip correlates with a 16% higher risk of death from any cause and a 21% higher risk of cardiac death specifically. That is not a small number. That is a number your cardiologist would be alarmed by. So what should you do instead of buying the easy open jars and calling it a day? First, do a grip exercise 3 times a week. A soft stress ball, a rolled towel, or an inexpensive hand gripper from a sporting goods store works. Squeeze for 5 seconds, release for 5 seconds, repeat 10 times per hand. Total time is 2 minutes per hand. Second, do it at a fixed time, after your morning coffee. The hand is already warm, and the routine hooks onto a habit you already have. Third, if you find this easy, graduate to a firmer gripper next month. Progression matters. The hand responds to challenge, not comfort. Let me tell you about someone I will call Robert. Robert was 74, a former machinist from Pittsburgh. He came in because his granddaughter had handed him a pickle jar at a family dinner, and he could not open it. He told me he had not opened a jar by himself in 2 years. His wife opened every one. He thought that was just how life was now. We measured his grip. It was almost half of what we expected for his age. He was shocked. We started the grip routine. 3 times a week, 2 minutes per hand after his morning coffee. At 4 months, his grip had improved by a quarter. He opened a jar in my office, looked at it for a long moment, and asked if he could call his wife. I said, of course. He told her, between laughter and something that sounded a lot like crying, that the next jar at home was his. Synergy tip. Pair grip work with a daily walk. Walking pumps blood through the hands, legs, and spine in a single coordinated motion. The hand and the heart respond to the same kinds of inputs. 1. Your morning stiffness is lasting longer than 15 minutes. I promised you would remember one number at the start. Here it is, and it is the most important number in this video. 15 minutes. If, after a night of sleep, You cannot comfortably move your fingers, wrists, knees, shoulders, or hips until you have been up and walking around for longer than 15 minutes. You have an early sign of stiffening that deserves your attention. Here is what it does inside you. During sleep, you do not move. The joint oil settles. The cartilage sponge dries. A small amount of inflammation, even in a healthy joint, accumulates overnight. In a healthy 65-year-old, a few minutes of gentle movement in the morning restores flow and stiffness disappears. In a joint beginning to stiffen, this recovery takes longer, and the inflammation does not quiet down quickly. Clinical studies have shown that in osteoarthritis, morning stiffness usually lasts less than 30 minutes, while in inflammatory arthritis, such as rheumatoid arthritis, stiffness often runs much longer. But here is the part patients misunderstand. You do not need full-blown arthritis for an early warning sign to matter. A 15 to 30-minute window is already meaningful. Researchers at a European rheumatology center reported that even moderate, prolonged morning stiffness in older adults was closely tied to systemic joint inflammation that was already underway. So, what should you do instead of dragging yourself out of bed and wincing your way to the kitchen? First, do not jump out of bed. Before your feet touch the floor, do 5 slow movements. Open and close your fists 10 times. Bend your knees 1 at a time, 5 times each. Roll your ankles 5 times each. The whole routine takes 90 seconds. Second, after you stand, walk for 5 minutes before sitting down for breakfast. The order matters. Move first, eat second. Third, hydrate. Joint fluid is mostly water. A glass of water on the nightstand, drank before those slow movements, feeds the very fluid you are trying to mobilize. If your stiffness lasts more than an hour, that is a stronger signal. Make an appointment with your doctor. Bring this video if it helps, but do not wait until the hour mark to begin the gentle movements. Start tonight. Synergy tip. Combine the morning movement routine with the grip routine from item 2. They take about 5 minutes total. By the end, your hands and your knees have both had their first round of fuel. Your day starts on firmer ground. Take a breath with me. We are halfway through. If this is helping you, share it with someone you love, not as a warning, not as a scare, just as a quiet, "Hey, watch this with me, and we will talk about it after." That is how seniors get the truth. Their appointments do not have time to cover. By passing it across kitchen tables and Sunday phone calls. I do this work because I have seen the difference. I have seen Robert open the jar. I have seen Margaret bend her knee without bracing. I have seen Henry rise from his recliner without a sound. These are not miracle stories. They are the result of detection, science, and a few minutes a day. Help me reach the next kitchen table. Let us bring it all together. Number 4. Cracking, popping, grinding knees. Friction where friction should not exist. Study of 3,495 adults. Roughly 3 times the risk of symptomatic joint disease. Prescription: do not avoid bending. 10 minutes of slow chair leg extensions daily. Number 3. First step out of a chair is the worst step, a dry sponge being stepped on. Clinical research predicts structural changes within 3 years, even when resting films look fine. Prescription: stand every 30 minutes, 5 ankle pumps before rising, slow first step. Number 2, grip is slipping. The hand is a window to the whole frame. Comprehensive review. A 5-kilogram drop in grip carries a 16 to 21% higher risk of death. Prescription: 3 times a week, 2 minutes per hand. Softball or gripper. After morning coffee. Number 1. Morning stiffness lasts longer than 15 minutes. The oil has thickened, the sponge has dried, and inflammation is smoldering. European rheumatology research. Even moderate prolongation is tied to inflammation already underway. Prescription: 90 seconds of slow in-bed movements before your feet hit the floor. 5-minute walk before breakfast. A glass of water on the nightstand. The 3 mechanisms: cartilage, joint oil, slow fire, Every item touches one of those three. You have the science, you have the prescriptions, you have the patient names, even if I change them. Let us turn this into an action plan. Here is what to do tonight and what to do this week. Tonight before bed, place a glass of water on your nightstand. Place a soft ball or small towel next to it. Decide which 2 minutes of tomorrow morning will be your movement routine. Tomorrow morning, before your feet hit the floor, do 90 seconds of slow hand, ankle, and knee movements. Then stand. Walk for 5 minutes. Do not sit for coffee before you have moved. Squeeze the ball or towel for 2 minutes per hand after the coffee. This week, stand up from any chair every 30 minutes during the day. Do 10 slow chair leg extensions once a day. Do the grip routine 3 times. Walk after dinner. If any stiffness lasts longer than an hour, or if a joint is swelling, hot, or visibly different, that is a signal worthy of an appointment. Bring this list with you. Let me zoom out for a moment. I have been a rheumatologist for almost 2 decades. I have met people who, by every measurement, were losing the use of their joints. I have met others who, by every measurement, should have been, and yet still climbed their own stairs at 92. The difference, almost every time, was not luck. It was not genetics alone. The difference was that someone, somewhere, taught them what to watch for. And they watched, and they acted. That is what I am trying to do for you today. You want to keep carrying your own groceries. You want to climb the steps to your grandchild's apartment without a railing. You want to remember her name when she runs across the room. You want to laugh at dinner without wincing when you set down your fork. You want your independence to last as long as your life does. I am telling you, on the record, after 17 years of practice, that those futures are still available to you. The joints are telling you something right now. They are telling you to listen. They are not telling you it is too late. It is never too late. If this video gave you one thing tonight, subscribe and tap the notification bell, because the next one will build on this. I will walk you through the warning signs that your bones are losing density and how to catch that one early. Drop your morning stiffness time in the comments. Just the number of minutes: 5, 20, 45. I read every single comment, and your number is going to help someone else in the comments who is wondering whether their own number is normal. I am Dr. David Reynolds. Thank you for your time tonight. Take care of those joints. They have to last you.